Hey guys, this is Solution Podfics, and today we're going to be reading Birds of a Feather by House_Library. This is Chapter 11. 5 days prior to America's arrival. With Peter being more involved in his everyday life, Dick had debated watching videos on how to parent. He wanted to be the best version of himself for Peter, and just set a good example for who he was as a person. Dick had noted that Peter seemed to be letting his guard down since he had been going out on missions. He was grateful that Tim was able to offer something that he himself couldn't to Peter. Them being so close in age really helped Peter fit in with the Titans a bit better. Con, Damian, Carr, Magon, and Cass had all welcomed him with open arms, which made the tension in Dick's shoulders go away a lot faster. It was difficult for him to get a read on Peter had been feeling recently, like there was a sudden shift in him that he couldn't quite place. It seemed to be a good shift because whatever it was, it had gotten Peter distracted, and he seemed to be getting more focused on getting accustomed to Gotham and this universe he was in. Peter had been a little bit of an open book since arriving, but now he seemed a bit more closed off, but Dick wouldn't make the interference that Peter was now also more composed. If anything, it seemed like Peter was holding his breath around everyone. Dick wasn't sure if Peter was scared about something. They had been making slow but decent progress with Constantine about the multiversal repercussions of Peter's presence, and had decided that if nothing went wrong by the end of the month, Peter seemed to be in the clear. In the meantime, the Justice League had been keeping track of surges in energy within the universe to make sure everything was stable, and if there was anything to learn. Peter seemed to have stopped mentioning anything about his universe, and it seemed to help him relax, which Dick did not want to interrupt. He knew he had been smothering Peter a bit, and he didn't want to be a clingy type of parent, but he couldn't help it, when all he wanted to do was help Peter feel like he had a home in Gotham. It was hard not to have doubts in himself, when Bruce and Damian seemed to have been avoiding any interactions with Peter after Dick called in a favor from the whole family. He wanted to believe that what he had asked of them was the right thing, and so far he had no reason to believe he was in the wrong. It was a message he had gotten from Magon that made him question whether or not Peter was actually okay. He might need to start taking some further action to see what Peter might be dealing with. Message from Magon. Is Peter a magic user? Present day after seeing America. He had been slipping. How could he have not seen that? It was as if he was subconsciously ignoring all the signs for some reason until something took over him. Peter felt as though his lungs were about to implode. Everything was red, and he was struggling to see. Water around his eyes stretching and distorting his vision. His mind had been in the process of derailing recently. Well, it was derailed by being sit here, but he thought he was on the mend. Recently, he had just been having weird thoughts that made him feel like he was inexperienced, and back to when he was bitten initially. He didn't know why he was suddenly thinking this way. It was a slippery slope that led him to what he had just done. Where was his self-control? He blinked, trying to wipe out his tears. Red. His vision was coated in red as he groaned and screamed while running. How could he have said that? How could he have done that? What was happening to him? His head was pounding as though something was going to burst through his skull. Why had he done that? What in his right mind was he thinking? He had never felt such rage and sadness combined before. It felt like he threw up and just kept going. There were flares he had had in the past, this feeling losing Ben, May, and Tony, but never like this. The closest thing was when he'd faced the Green Goblin, but even then, it was not like this. He was horrified with himself. That wasn't him. He didn't even know how to describe how he was feeling. He couldn't go back. His name was being shouted over and over again. It sounded like whoever was yelling was getting angrier and louder. His feet kept moving, one foot in front of the other. His spidey senses were all over the place, spiking and lowering. It only added to his confusion. Something was wrong with him. He wouldn't have ever said that. He thought he had learned from Ben, from May. How could he even face America, let alone Dick? He was a fucking idiot. The pain was sudden, like electricity scattered through his throat. He found himself on his back groaning, not being able to breathe. What the hell? How did he not see that coming? His senses, they were incoherent. He couldn't speak or even scream. His trachea swelling quickly from the sudden blunt force. He coughed, trying to catch his breath, his eyes watering even more now. That could have killed him if he weren't who he was. Who would do that? He was seeing double, his eyes rolling. The green and red uniform in front of him was spinning. Don't come any closer, the voice spoke. It was laced with venom, each word with a purpose. He wasn't talking to Peter, though. He wasn't even looking at him splayed out on the floor. He was looking further down the hall. Peter and I are going to have a little chat, whether you like it or not, so go away, now, the voice said as Peter's hand found his throat. He could hear the footsteps that were approaching him slowly get further away. Damian had always known he was a blunt person. He was the king of being blunt. He had never found fear in telling people how it was. So when he was watching over the Bat computer and heard what Peter had said to his family, to that girl who had come so far to help him, it filled him with a sense of scorn towards the brunette boy from another universe. He was done avoiding him just to spare his stupid-ass feelings. You are pathetic. No, you are worse than that. You are an ungrateful, whiny child who is taking advantage of people who care about you. You are selfish and a freeloader. Damian spit down at Peter's face. Peter winced. He tried to speak, but his voice only croaked. You don't get to do any talking. Damian kept a straight face. Peter looked at him, shuffling back a bit. I knew you could take the hit no matter how hard I hit you, and I figured you would trust anyone here to never attack you unless provoked. Well, guess what? I am provoked, Damian said quietly, the anger piercing through every word. Richard had asked us to be careful with what we said around you. He wanted to make sure you were fully adjusted to this new place. He wanted everyone to coddle you. I couldn't do that, so I avoided you. But I am done avoiding, and they are done coddling. If I have anything to say about it, I don't care what Dick has to say. Damian glared straight into Peter's soul. He thought you'd run away if things got hard for you, or you'd snap in your sudden superiority complex over anyone that can process emotions got triggered. Too bad I don't give a fuck about that or how you feel anymore. Green eyes met brown once again. Don't get me wrong. Dick is a great person, and an even better brother. He rolls his eyes and grits his teeth. Whether I've ever said it out loud or not, he is kind and a beacon for our family. Although Dick has never treated me like he treats you. He doesn't treat Jason this way, and he doesn't treat Tim this way. Not to the extent he has with you. Maybe it's the whole father-son thing, but I'm fucking sick of it. He isn't challenging you to be better. You are stagnant. You are the epitome of no progress, Damian yelled. If I was coddled the way you have been, I would be dead by now. I would have had no growth, no discipline, no emotional integrity. Damian saw as Peter's eyes were wide, and he could tell that even if he spoke, he would be at a loss for words. You're just as weak as you say you are, but the weakest thing about you is that you don't do anything to change it. You only seem to grow when someone knocks some sense into you. Well, buckle the hell up and get with reality because newsflash, you're going to have to know how to do that on your own without being a fucking asshole to people who love you, Damian yelled, stern and with meaning. Peter nodded no, as if denying Damian's claims. He could see Peter's eyes filled with hurt at his words. Good. Damian figured Peter had grown a bunch on his own, whether it was through self-discovery or the trials that he had to deal with when keeping his identity a secret. But he knew he needed to hit Peter where it hurt. No? You think I'm wrong? Well, I am not wrong. You are just someone who justifies how you dismiss people who are trying to help by blaming your reasoning on what's been done to you. Damian spits again. In his best Peter impression, oh no, I got hurt and can't process my feelings. Or, oh no, you could get hurt, which would still ultimately affect me. Oh my god, me. It's all about you, isn't it, Peter? No, that's bullshit. I saw the footage from your seat, Peter. You almost killed a man when you had been preaching standards of a hero, because he was deranged and hurt and almost hurt people you cared about. Your feelings are valid, but killing him? That's not for you to fucking decide, no matter how much it affects you. And who knocked sense into you? Another fucking version of yourself that seems to have all the attributes you seriously lack. Fucking embarrassing. Damian watched as Peter curled in on himself. Yeah, I bet that struck a nerve, you dick. I heard what you said, and you know what, you are right. I don't know you at all, but even I feel stupid to have thought that you are better than someone who could just tear into someone who obviously cares about you. Damian bends down and grabs Peter and throws him over his shoulder. Peter lets him as he seems to be in a bit of shock. He looked deep into Peter's eyes. There was a tint of something red? It quickly fades away, but he saw it. Damian shook his head. You look even worse than how you acted. I'm taking you to the bathroom, and you still aren't allowed to speak, Damian grunted as he took Peter further into the manor. From what she had heard from his aunt, MJ, and Ned when she had met them, he knew that Peter was selfless, kind, and caring. He had always put his friends and family first, and barely complained about what was going on in his life while being Spiderman. She could see it in Peter himself, in his smile and how he had treated her with kindness and respect. That was not the same Peter that had just spoken to her. Would Peter have spoken like that to her? Even though she had only known Peter for a little over a week, every bone in her body was telling her that something was wrong. She just didn't know what. What was different about this interaction with Peter? She knew she hadn't seen him in a while, but the change wasn't something that seemed natural. It was amplified anger. It seemed familiar to her. The feeling she felt from him yelling at her felt familiar to something she had felt from someone else. America? The man who she knew as Dick Grayson pulled her out of her stupor. How are you feeling? She just stared at him, seeing how much he actually did look like Peter. She broke out of her trance and shook her head. I'm fine, she said slowly. What Peter said was out of line. He's not going to just get away with it, Dick said sternly. America could see how Tim, Barbara, and Jason all gave each other a look and then turned to Dick. But Dick, you said that now is the time to let Peter process, Barbara began. Well, I was wrong, Dick cut her off. I know what I said, and I was wrong. Instead of helping Peter avoid his problems, we should have been helping him overcome them. I thought that he would leave if he felt cornered, Dick said sadly as he turned to the others. I'm sorry for making you do something you weren't comfortable with. I know B said that we needed to help Peter get control of his emotions, but I thought my way would have worked. I guess I'm a shit dad that has no idea what he's doing, Dick sighed. America interjected. You aren't. You thought you were doing what was right. Emphasis on thought, Jason muttered. Thank you, it's true. What I thought was right, not necessarily what was right for Peter, Dick said with a glum look. I just never thought he would snap like that. He hadn't ever acted like that before. In the time he's been in Gotham, it's only ever been as bad as a few sad days for him. Dick looked at America while rubbing his forehead. Dick shared the same look Peter would have whenever he was disappointed in himself or stressed about things out of his control. It was weird how alike they looked. Why did I let this happen? I should have brought it up sooner, corrected him sooner. I can't believe I let it get to that point. Dick's hands gripped the edges of the table. America saw his forearms flex beneath the suit. His grip was strong. Me neither, Tim shrugged in response to Dick's apparent negligence. Barbara elbows Tim, earning a sudden gasp from him as Jason chuckled. We all did, Dick. This isn't just on you, Barbara said assuredly. No, you only did that because I asked that of you. B and Damian knew it and voiced that I was wrong, but my pride was too high and too clouded by Peter that I didn't think straight. I should have known better, Dick sighed. Look, I know you don't know me, and I don't know you, but I don't think you can blame yourself for how Peter acted. I'm starting to think that even Peter can't blame himself either, America whispered. What do you mean? Jason asked. Peter's family and friends said that Peter was the dictionary definition of kind and selfless. It was true. I saw it with my own eyes when he was helping me out, America responded. Dick looked at her while furrowing his brows. Are you saying that his blow-up was more than just out of character for him? Dick asked. America thought hard about what to say. She knew it was out of character. She felt it. But there had to be a reason as to what triggered Peter to act like that. It felt like he was a completely different person. It hadn't been that long for him since he had seen her, even if it was longer for her. Weird to think about it that way. She swallowed hard, remembering his words. She rubbed her eyes and tried hard to process potential reasons to justify Peter's actions and prove that something was wrong. Dick seemed to recognize that America was deep in thought. He turned to Donna and Con as they entered the room with their communicators in hand. Thank you both for coming here. Sorry it turned out the way it did. I think if you both report in person to Wonder Woman and Superman about this, we can cover B and let him know what's going on, he said. Donna and Con both have an empathetic smile on their face as they nod and make their way out of the manor. Dick turns to face the others. Damian seems to be taking charge in the Peter situation right now. I can only imagine what he could be telling him, Dick sighed. It's for the best, Dick. Peter might need a wake-up call, Barbara said. Might? Jason scoffed. Okay, yes. Peter needs this. Barbara rolled her eyes. Damian's probably saying what we all are thinking, let's be honest, Tim says while folding his arms. America could hear Dick and the others having a conversation, but she wasn't processing what they were saying. Her brain was hurting, thinking back to the people she met in several universes she had visited on her way to find Peter. Where had she felt that feeling before? Peter yelling at her made her emotional, of course, because of what he was saying, but the energy she was feeling was triggering as well. Why? Her eyes opened. The feeling of the hand on her throat came back to her suddenly. She wanted to block this experience forever. What have you done? Wait, boys, I'm your mother. Get away from them. The variant being flung, the dining table collapsing, books being thrown. Stop it! Please, don't hurt us. I would never hurt you. Never. I would never hurt anyone. I'm not a monster. Wanda, America whispered. She remembered what Strange had said about Wanda. Someone who was kind and gentle, but later corrupted by the Darkhold to accomplish a bidding that wasn't her own. That was a stretch, but then again, she was in a completely other universe than she had been earlier today, so maybe it wasn't. Something was coming, she recalled Wanda's words. What if that something was already here, or already making its presence known? Wanda was involved in this, or more so, maybe whatever was involved with Wanda is involved with Peter somehow. She should have recognized this from the start. Peter and America's stories were intertwined from the beginning with Strange and with Wanda. Oh my god, it's already here, Wanda said suddenly. The others stopped their conversation and turned to look at her concerned. Mount Wandagaro. Have you heard back from your magical contact about whether Scarlet Witch has any meaning in this universe? America said, still in thought. America watches as Barbara pulls out what she can only assume is a communicator. I just sent an SOS marked as urgent. What's going on? What's Mount Wandagaro? What if Peter is being corrupted by something? She asked the group hesitantly. They all looked at her, bewildered and confused. Can you elaborate? Tim asked. It was the scream from further inside the manor that prevented the conversation from going any further. It wasn't a scream of anger, but of pain. Something of fear. Like right out of the scary movie Peter had told her about. What was that? She said as she looked towards the others. The looks on their faces told her this wasn't something that happens inside the manor. They were all in fighting stances with weapons ready as they began to leap to different vantage points and pull out these small tablets. What's going on? America asked as she turned towards the hall. She could hear footsteps approaching. She stood her ground quickly and got ready to fight whatever was coming. The sudden mist of red enveloped her before she could even react. Damian had barely put him down in the bathroom, and he collapsed straight to the ground. Peter felt as though he was about to physically explode. Damian, help. Please help me. Peter choked out, his voice still croaky and hoarse. He was sweating profusely. It was so hot in this bathroom. It felt akin to a sauna or a steam room. Peter, what's going on? Keep talking to me. Tell me what you are feeling. Talk to me. Talk to me, Damian yelled. Peter clawed at his chest and spasmed on the ground. It felt like he was a fish out of water. It hurts, Damian. It hurts, Peter gasped. Tell me what hurts. Is it your throat? What is it? Your chest? Damian worked quickly to get Peter out of his suit until the top part dangled off his waist. Peter looked down to see his whole body was sweating. Holy fuck, Peter, you're burning. Fucking boiling, Damian muttered, trying to grab onto Peter to support him. Damian grabbed Peter and tried to help him up to the sink. As Peter put one hand on the sink, he looked into the mirror and saw it. The red eyes he had seen in the alley earlier. Except they were his eyes. He gasped and he threw himself back away from the sink, sending him tumbling into Damian, landing on top of him. It was weird to suddenly think this, but Peter was surprised to find himself on top of Damian. Why didn't Damian dodge him or catch him? Was something wrong with him too? As Peter looked back towards the mirror, he saw darkness personified looking back at him. He saw his red energy float off of him. He could see it enveloping Damian as though it was sucking the life force out of him. Damian screamed as Peter saw him crumple further to the ground. The force wasn't just absorbing something from Damian. It was as though it was absorbing this room. The mirror shatters and the metal hinges began to melt. Get out, Peter thought. Get out of my head! His mind was yelling. He banged his hands on his temples and groaned at the immense pain. He gritted his teeth. He felt himself propel whatever was around him. He screamed a blood-curdling scream as he saw the red disperse. Silence. His head was clear now. No more voices. Everything was slowly fading to black. Wanda knew she had to do something. This was the only thing she could think of. It was a close call to pull 4 of them to this plane so suddenly, but she knew she had done it just in the nick of time. She walked across the tinted dirt towards the 4 bodies lying on the ground. She knew she wouldn't be able to come to them, so at least she brought them to her. Anything to help them prepare for the worst. One of the bodies groaned as they slowly sat up while rubbing their head. You must be Dick Grayson. I've done some small research on you and your variants, she spoke to him. Dick's eyes were wide as he turned to look around. His eyes widened even more seeing who he was with. Lying on the floor next to him was his protege, his son, and the girl who he had just met. My name is Wanda Maximoff, but you might know me as the Scarlet Witch. Welcome to Limbo, she said as she tried to get a read on how he was feeling. Alright guys, and that is the end of chapter 11 of Birds of a Feather by Howls_Library. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you in the next chapter.